Right. Hi guys, and welcome to Watch Yourself George, or Watch Yourself Jorge, depending on how the hell you want to pronounce my first name. Right, so today's video is my personal favourite top 5 watch brands. You might care about that, you might not, but it's something I want to talk about, so I'm going to subject you to it. Number 1, not in any particular order, but I am going to do my favourite watch brand last. Jaeger LeCoultre, or JLC, or Jaeger LeCoultre, or however the hell you want to pronounce it. Why do I love JLC, or Jaeger? They were founded in 1833, which, first of all, just makes them really bloody old, and I like that a lot. JLC, I feel like, don't get a lot of respect sometimes in the watch industry. People concentrate on the Rolexes, and the Pateks and the APs, and JLC is sort of left out in the cold by your rap songs and stuff, when they actually have some of the best sort of watchmaking in the world. They were founded by a guy who just really liked making pinions, to be honest, and he founded a whole company around making pinions. Now, the main reason I love JLC, and it's something everyone's going to talk about, it's always lauded, they are known as the watchmaker's watchmaker. In short, they made movements for decades for all the companies in the big three, in the Holy Trinity. Your Patek, your Vacheron, and your AP, as well as many other companies. And I just think they don't get really enough credit for that. Plus, I think they make some of the most beautiful, most refined watch designs in the world. I love the Master Ultra Thin Moon. It's a beautiful watch. I'm not wearing it. Don't know why I touched my wrist. Plus, they have in their collection one of the most iconic watches ever. Something that some people think JLC leans too closely on, and that's the Reverso. But I love the Reverso. Never owned one. I've got hands-on with one a few times. But they're just bloody beautiful, and that's why I love JLC. Next, I mean, what sort of watch video of brands would it be if I didn't talk about something from the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation? Now, Rolex. Let's talk No, I'm joking. I'm not that on the nose. I'm going to talk about Tudor instead. In terms of their actual designs and the functionality of the watches, I prefer Tudor. Like all watch people, I've got a bit of a complicated relationship with Rolex, but I appreciate them. They make some absolutely brilliant watches, amazing build quality. And I think Tudor makes just as good watches. Obviously, the prices are better, the finishing isn't as high, and they don't have that master chronometer certification on all of their watches, but they are brilliant. Like, founded in 1924 by Hans Wilsdorf, he literally said he wanted to make a watch of just as good a quality at a more modest price. And even today, I think they are smashing, absolutely smashing that goal. I mean, Tudor now are what Rolex were when they were first founded. Ridiculously durable tool watches. I mean, the Submariner is a dive watch. Stunning watch. I mean, I try one on pretty much every day at work because I love it. But if you actually went diving in that dive watch, people call you mad. If you put on a Pelagos with its titanium case, its ridiculous level of legibility, it's the fact it actually has a helium release valve, the fact it's actually insanely waterproof, and with its amazing T-fit clasp and stuff, no one's going to think you're mad, because that watch is actually a brilliant tool watch. And Tudor's just really on top of their game. When Rolex is very forward-thinking, they don't like to be too retrospective with their designs, bar a couple of examples, particularly recently. Tudor's very retrospective. You just have to look at the new Black Bay 54 to think like, wow, they're actually looking at their heritage, making the watches people want to see. And I just love Tudor. They make exceptionally made tool watches that have a broad appeal. But that's not to get into their naming scheme. They really need to give the static bezel Black Bay a different name, because at the moment it's just called Black Bay. And when there's a million different models of Black Bay, they're idiots for that. Blah. I mentioned the Holy Trinity earlier in this video. Now, the Holy Trinity needs to get a mention, just as the Hans Wilsdorf group, I think, deserves a look in. So you've got your Patek Philippe, your Audemars Piguet. Different look and angle at this video than most people would. I'm not going to talk about either of those two. I'm going to talk about the old king, Vacheron Constantin. I feel like AP is very much a Royal Oak company, and I feel like Patek has been edging towards that in recent years with the Nautilus. They've managed to get away from it by discontinuing the 5711, but I don't think Vacheron's ever in danger of becoming a one-watch brand like some of the other brands that I'm talking about here, like with Tudor and the Black Bay. I believe firmly that Vacheron has the best product catalogue and the most well-rounded product catalogue of the whole of the Holy Trinity. And that's not to mention the fact that they are the second oldest continuously operating watch brand in the world. They were founded in 1755, and that just blows my mind. Vacheron's product catalogue involves products like the historic 222, which I think could play ball with any Royal Oak or any yellow gold Royal Oak any day of the week. It includes the historic 1921 with its really cool cushion case that's slightly slanted as an old American driving watch, and it's just pure class. And then if you want a pure dress watch, you've got the Patrimony. There's nothing as simple or as classy as a Patrimony, bar maybe I'd say a Saxonia, but that's outside of Switzerland, so boo. I'm not a Swiss elitist. We'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, the Patrimony's brilliant. The 56 in their more entry level, but even that has the Genève seal, which to get into, Vacheron Constantin is one of the only Swiss watch brands left, big ones, that still uses the Genève seal on all of their watches. They have that stamp to say, wow, these watches are so bloody good, we're literally going to endorse them as a country. And I just think that's awesome. And also, if you do want to compare Vacheron, apples for apples, oranges to oranges, to Patek and AP, you've got the Overseas. And I think the Overseas is just as good as either of those. Plus, I think Vacheron as a brand with their name, using that cross just makes me think of the Templars, and I think that's really bloody cool. So, number 3, Vacheron Constantin. Number 4, well, I let producer Terry choose a watch. So,
Omega.
What was that?
Omega.
Omega, right. Why did we choose Omega, Terry? Any ideas?
Great vintage.
Great vintage is what he said. Yeah, his first luxury watch was a beautiful, I think it's 34 or 36 mil vintage DeVille, and absolutely stunning. There's nothing like a vintage watch, and it couldn't be much different to like the sort of things I've been wearing in the videos recently. Now, why Omega? Now, Omega, they don't really need an introduction. Omega in its modern form was founded in 1903. Before that, they were founded in 1848, and they were known as Le General Watch Co. Yeah, I'm terrible with names. Please do excuse me. When it comes to iconic watches, Omega's sort of got the whole thing in the bag on this list. I mean, there's a reason Omega don't really need an introduction. They're as quintessential and they're as easy to pick for this list as, say, Rolex. I mean, all you need to do is look at the Apollo mission, and you've got the Speedmaster. Omega didn't even apply to get the Speedmaster onto the Apollo missions as NASA's official watch. NASA just got a bunch of watches, gave them all a go, and the Omega Speedmaster just happened to be the only one that passed all the tests. That's how cool Omega was. And it was through virtue of their great design. Omega designed the whole METAS certification process, which now Tudor has started to use for the Black Bay burgundy bezel and the Black Bay ceramic. Again, great naming scheme, Tudor. Love it, love it, love it. I mean, even when it comes to modern icons, you've got the Seamaster 300 meter from Omega. And obviously that watch has only come out in the last few decades. But now it's sort of Omega's quintessential watch, has sort of overtaken the Speedmaster. Obviously we've got Bond to thank for that. But now you think of James Bond, one of the most recognisable franchises in the world. You think of Omega, not the Rolex that he was wearing in the books or in the old films. Their marketing's been brilliant. You can say things about the fact they need a more tight product catalogue. You can say that they really have issues with some of their branding. Like, the Seamaster line is too big, Omega. You've got the same issues as Tudor have with the Black Bay line. You can't have, oh, I bought myself a Seamaster. Oh, which one did you buy? Did you buy the 300 meter? Did you buy the Aquaterra? Did you buy the Planet Ocean? Did you buy the Heritage? It's like, I brought a Seamaster. Like, there's too many Omega. But Omega, we love you. Even when it comes to like your integrated bracelets, the Constellation, I love vintage Constellations. Our peak Gerald Genta design, absolutely beautiful watches. And they make some, and if you do want to pick up a good deal, they have some of the best pre-owned watches on the market with their pre-owned DeVilles. Love them. And number 5, I did say I was going to talk about my favourite watch brand last. Now, I mentioned I work at NAD. I am this brand's brand ambassador, as well as a couple others, but I love this brand. Everything they do excites me. They do have a bit of issue with their pricing. They do have a bit of issue by the fact that their product catalogue is infinitely huge. And I don't even know half their product catalogue. But they're not Swiss, and I love them. Seiko. Now, why do I love Seiko? Seiko was founded in 1881, which makes them, for a Japanese watch brand, really old. You don't think of Seiko being that old, which is mad. Now, Seiko essentially means House of Precision in Japanese. Out of all of these brands, they're the only one that's still family owned. Tudor's owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. Both JLC and Vacheron are owned by the same conglomerate. Omega is owned by the Swatch Group. Seiko's family owned, and that blows my mind. And the fact that it's one of the few brands on this list that can say they do everything in-house. To be fair, I have picked pretty much all brands that do everything in-house, I think, to correct myself there. But it's mad that a brand like Seiko, which occupies a unique spot on this list in the fact they're not Swiss, in the fact they're not known as a luxury watchmaker, they do everything in-house. Seiko also have an insanely different approach to quality control. When other brands rate their watch's accuracy, other brands will either batch test or they'll test every single watch, and they will rate the accuracy for the best watch out of the batch or out of all of them. They'll rate it for the best. Seiko doesn't do that. Seiko rates it for the worst. So you know, whatever watch you're getting something that will perform as good or better. Whereas other brands, you're getting something that will perform as good or worse. And I love that approach from Seiko. Plus, they're revolutionary. I mean, Omega's had the coaxial movement. Cool. But you can't say any of the other brands on this list have really revolutionized the watch market in the last forever. Seiko kickstarted the quartz crisis, or as they call it, the quartz revolution, with the very first quartz movement. And the watch industry's not been the same since. The only reason we think of watches as ticking is because of Seiko. Before that, they were all glidey. Like, Seiko literally changed the way that modern culture thinks about the watch. And they did it a second time as well. Just not 10 years later, they started development of the spring drive movement. And whilst it's still only Grand Seiko that uses a spring drive movement. They have a quartz regulated, essentially automatic watch, to boil it down to the simplest components, that's accurate to a second a day for what is essentially an automatic watch with a quartz regulator. And that blows my mind. Plus, if you have a look at Grand Seiko, which I am including in Seiko, even if they're separate families, they both have Seiko in the name. No. Grand Seiko makes watches on par with anyone else on this list in terms of finishing. The dial sweep is exemplary. The finishing on the hands, particularly like on the and the hour markers, particularly on the Shumbun and the Snowflake, you can't get better on a sub $10,000 watch. You simply cannot. And I haven't even mentioned Creedor, their top level, and Creedor will outdo anyone else in the world for finishing and innovation. And Creedor isn't a watch brand that gets talked about nearly enough, but they are exemplary. And that's why I love Seiko. Honourable mentions. Number 1, Hublot. Just kidding. Number 1, Casio. They don't need an explanation. We love G-Shock. They're god tier. Yeah, to quote someone else. Number 2, Rolex have to have a mention, just in how important they've been to the watch industry. I'd also say I really want to mention Richard Mille. The fact that they've come up so quickly in the watch industry, and their watches are like mini science experiments, and it's just mental. So, to end this video, if I have made any mistakes, if you do want to correct me, or if you want to have any comments, please be polite, comment below. I love to learn, love to be corrected. And I've been George / Jorge. He's been producer Terry, and that's my 5 favourite watch brands. Thank you very much.